Well, I would say you need to understand the biblical role of the father. When it comes to your child, you are tasked to protect them both physically, spiritually, and emotionally, and really outside the house and obviously in other ways as well. Quality time is everything. You're not above any of the duties or the tasks or the roles. And it comes with a lot of responsibilities. And so, again, I speak very directly to young men. Erica's the, young woman outreach part of this. But young men need to be talked this way, actually, because they say, oh, I want to be a dad. Like, really? Are you earning enough money? Have you done the right work? Have you asked for a raise, asked for promotion, got up earlier, stayed up later to make sure your family does not have any financial pressures or issues?
Charlie, what advice would you give young women who've been taught to put their careers first before even thinking about settling down or having kids?
I always get in trouble no matter how I answer this question, Laura, so here it goes. Look, I'll say this, is that having children is more important than having a good career. I have 2 kids. I also have an amazingly blessed career. Our podcast is doing great, but my kids matter way more than how many social media followers that I have. And I would also tell young ladies, you can always go back to your career later, that there is a window where you primarily should pursue marriage and having children, and that is a beautiful thing. This is not about shaming. It's not about ridiculing. It's not about moralizing. It's about lifting up what is beautiful. And by the way, when we look at the mental health data, young women are not okay. Half, that is right, half of liberal white women say that they have some form of mental health issue that has been diagnosed by a doctor. What is the #1 thing that mental health professionals will tell you when it comes to mental health issues? Loneliness does not help. So maybe we should solve the loneliness epidemic by encouraging young ladies to get married and have children. It's good for them, it's good for America, and it's good for our future.
When people stop talking, really bad stuff starts. When marriages stop talking, divorce happens. When civilizations stop talking, civil war ensues. When you stop having a human connection with someone you disagree with, it becomes a lot easier to want to commit violence against that group. What we as a culture have to get back to is being able to have reasonable disagreement where violence is not an option.
He is... My husband, Charlie Kirk, is a force. He is a force. He is bold when the world demands silence. He is fearless where others flinch, and he has taken on the battle of the next generation, changing these hearts and minds. I know you guys have seen it at the college campuses, changing the hearts and minds of these kids. It's not a career to him, it's a calling. And it's so incredible to see as a wife how God has prepared him, how God has molded him and used him. All while he's doing that, he's still the spiritual head of our family. It is my honor to be able to introduce you guys to one of the greatest fighters that I know, who is so intentional, who is so amazing, and he never backs down from the fight because he knows who and what he fights for, and that is God, it's his family, and it's country. I want to introduce you guys to my husband, Charlie Kirk.
I'm just flesh and bone, but more importantly, I'm a soul. And that soul is accountable to one being. I mean, I've had an unbelievably blessed life. Been doing this now, it'll be 12 years on June 5th.
Such a young man to do it.
So young.
Yeah, so praise God. I mean, I've been all across the world. I've met with world leaders. I've flown in Air Force One, got to know a president. I have an amazing family. The podcast, Turning Point USA, all that stuff. And so you experience that and you're like, what actually matters? What matters is your relationship with the divine, your relationship with your family, your kids, and maybe a close collection of friends, and your relationship with the truth.
Let me ask you tonight, do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do.
This is what kicking the shit out of fascism looks like.
Try to prevent the spread of the lawlessness and the fascist chaos that's been unleashed against us.
So when we say Donald Trump is a fascist, fascism, a huge component of fascism is uniting racism, bigotry, a form of racist nationalism.
We are now living in a fascist dictatorship.
We are worried about potential rise of fascism in this country. We're worried about our democracy falling to an authoritarian and potentially fascist form of government.
Not only to roll over to Donald Trump's will, but to roll over our democracy and allow him to take over this country as a fascist dictator.
When fascism isn't just coming, it's already here.
The former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, said, "No one has ever been more dangerous to this country than Donald Trump, and he is a fascist to his core."
Shot down and he was barely 31. Another woke coward took a life with a gun. He left behind a wife and a daughter and a son. All he did was try to speak for all of us. And I'm so tired of the hatred and the narratives. The patriots ain't dangerous, woke people are the terrorists. They shot and killed the father, sent a message to Americans. They ain't gonna stop until they bury us. Dear Charlie, I don't know if you can see us now, but if heaven has a window, I sure hope you're looking down. Cause we ain't going quiet, we gon' scream your name loud. And you're gone, but I swear to God that we gon' make you proud. We ain't backing off or giving up, I'll preach what you taught me. They may have killed a soldier, but that man had an army. This is far more deep than some political parties. And you can't kill freedom, so this one is for Charlie. This ain't the America that all our parents love, but good men tried to keep making it great. Pray that God will take care of us, the system is failing us. When good men die for the things that they say, and I can't just be quiet. So I gotta be brave, cause this is America. Lately it's scaring us, but one good man can change it all in a day. Killed in cold blood for having a discussion, and liberals are celebrating murder like it's justice. You didn't kill a villain or the evil that it comes with. You killed a father and a husband. And I'm so tired of the left and all the wokery. We can't get along if you just kill us when we don't agree. Sniper rifle fire from a liberal that no one sees. Scared I might be next to die when I'm just buying groceries. Charlie, we'll make sure your children know that defending all our freedom is why you aren't coming home. I hope heaven has a window you can watch your children grow and hear your message echo from below. And we ain't backing off or giving up, I'll preach what you taught me. They may have killed a soldier, but that man had an army. This is far more deep than some political parties. And you can't kill freedom, so this one is for Charlie. This ain't the America that all our parents love, but good men try to keep making it great. Pray that God will take care of us, the system is failing us. When good men die for the things that they say, and I can't just be quiet. So I gotta be brave, cause this is America. Lately it's scaring us, but one good man can change it all in a day.
Hey everybody, it's Friday, and what a week it's been, huh? Yeah, that stuff's pretty heavy, isn't it? Hey, I've personally had a hard time with this. He gave so many people a voice, and they killed him for it. Anyway, before I get all emotional on you guys, I invited in tonight 4 of my buddies who were my mentors. And so first I want to introduce you to them, and then we're going to talk about this and what it means kind of on a bigger scale. So you guys know, first, welcome to the stage, Mr. Grumpy G. How's it going, Grumpy?
Good evening, folks. I hope everybody has at least had a productive week, that something positive came out of it.
Yeah, how has this all been heavy on you like it's been on me?
Yeah, I think it's hit me in a different way than it's hit a lot of people. I probably a little bit more radicalized in my opinion on things than other people. I will say this, that Tom, what's his last name?
Donald.
Yeah, Tom McDonald. That video, I saw that this afternoon, and it took the edge off.
Yeah, I think it's an important message, and we'll get into a lot of that stuff tonight.
Yep.
Second person I want to bring in, also a mentor of mine that, I ask guidance from a lot, and I actually make fun of on the lives all the time, and we call him Sharpshooter. But what's going on, buddy?
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
It's going good. Has this been heavy on you?
Yeah, and a lot of it, I think, it's more anger because it doesn't surprise me that it happened. It's horrible, but yeah, you don't ever think it will, because you're like, oh, that's completely extreme. That's too far. And then when it does happen, you're like, oh, wow. I mean, but yeah, especially after the 2 attempts on Trump, and now, I don't know, it's hard, but yeah, it doesn't surprise me. And that's one of the worst parts about it, I think. When you take out everything else that about how horrible it is. I mean, of course, the family, the loss to the family, that's just atrocious. Because I have children, and that's part of what hit me the hardest on that was because they were there, right? I mean, yeah, and I'm with mine all the time. I think that's one of the, it is. It's just bad. I mean, all bad.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you being here, and thanks for being someone I can talk to for sure. Hey, next I want to bring in kind of the guy that really the whole idea of building a town one day really kind of began with over a half-hearted conversation. I don't know, half-hearted, maybe that's even the right word. An off the cuff, conversation, but I want you guys to welcome Matt from Rocky Top Ranch. And how you doing, bud?
Doing great. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, it's been heavy for you.
It was, the beginning was very shocking. I was in the middle of a board meeting. Got a message come across my phone and saw that, and just was able to kind of look into it and see what was going on, and I had to maintain composure for the rest of the meeting, kind of keep it to myself, and it occupied my thoughts. It just was very, very shocking. In some ways reminiscent of September 11th, and the fact that it was like this big gasp, like now what, very, very shocking. And then as it set in later, and I talked to more friends and contemporaries, it really, really hit home. Just felt terrible about it.
Yeah. Well, again, bud, thanks for being here. And again, we'll get into all of that stuff tonight. Last and certainly not least, we have a very good friend of mine who's kind of a madman in a lot of ways, but also very wise in a lot of ways, and has given me a lot of good advice. And you guys know them from the chat quite often as Life of Mike and Jen. We call him Mario, but welcome my buddy Mario. What's up, dude?
Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you so much for allowing me to be with you guys tonight. I agree with everybody that's come on to talk about how they feel. This is a lot of a stir of emotions in some things, and it's like trying to hit a moving target. Like, how do I feel right now, and how do I feel right now? It's evolving, it's changing. But they say that grief is love with no place to go. So it's it hurts, it hits, and it's this grief. I'm trying to find this place for it to go, and I'm hoping that tonight we can bring some direction, some clarity to everybody that's feeling those same things.
Yeah, well, but I know this is not your thing, and I know that it. I know you felt to do it, and I'm thankful for you being here, and I hope we do that too. And I want everybody in the audience to know tonight that there's no preset questions for everybody. Nothing was sent to anybody. We're just going to talk about it because I know there's a lot of people in our community that are feeling the pain, and like I am. And so I think it's going to be an interesting conversation. And I'll let the audience ask questions and those kinds of things. And David, who's a guy that I've interacted with mostly more on Facebook than I have on YouTube, but he makes a comment, and he says, I learned how easy people are fooled by false flags. There's no way to prove what happened was real. And it's a really interesting topic. At the end of the day, I believe that a young man lost his life. And we can say it was that, young kid shooter. We can say it was some agency. We can say whatever it is, but I don't see really how that changes anything. I think at the end of the day, it's still the same thing, and it's brutality, and it's, the killing of someone, again, who gave us and anybody who stood in front of him a voice. And anyway, super heartbreaking.
Hey, Tag, we're past the first 2 minutes of the video. So dumbasses like that are part of the problem. What's wrong with this country? They are part of the problem, and they're part of what caused what happened on the 10th to happen. And entertaining people like that is no longer on the table. All right. If you run into people like that in real life, you need to push back on them. Make them own what they've said. For too long, people like that have been able to say what they say without any consequences. And cowards like that do it anonymously behind the internet. All right. So if you want an action call for tonight, there you go. engage people like that and make them own their stupidity.
Anybody else? Sharpshooter, you got anything? Matt, anybody?
I agree. There has to be accountability. The longer we sit with our head in the sand and don't make examples of these people, the longer this continues.
Yeah, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, no, I agree with that. That's from the beginning. It's they have to set an example by it. So you can't just continue to allow it. And from the beginning they said, don't forget the death penalty is still a viable option. And in something like this, I mean, I feel that it should be excised, honestly. Because or it's just going to encourage more people to just keep doing it. And I don't know, there has to be some sort of level of accountability. We've gone on too far the last 5 years at least. It's been exponentially getting worse, that the catch and release and everything else, that they're just not enforcing it and encouraging it actually in a lot of times. But
so speaking specifically to the gentleman's statement, of course I don't have the whole context of what he meant by false flag. If he meant the whole thing is faked, I find that pretty hard to believe. But if he's referring to that the person that was arrested as the potential shooter, I have no way of believing whether that guy's for real. I mean, we were told for how many years that JFK was shot by a guy in the bell tower, and we know that's absolutely false now. I mean, so yeah, maybe the guy that they picked up as the shooter is not the shooter. I think that's perfectly acceptable. That's how we believe anything now. How do we believe any of that stuff is real? I mean, we know Charlie Kirk was assassinated, murdered, shot in cold blood. But as far as who did it, I think the jury could still be out. We may not ever know.
Yeah, but I think the argument that I'd make to that is, why does it even matter? I mean, because I think at the end of the day, let's suppose for just a moment that person was the person who did it. What caused them to grow up in a conservative household with a mom and dad that seems, relatively normal, goes off to college, becomes radicalized, joins parties, whatever it is, and there's something bigger to all of this. There's something systematic to all of this. It's much, much bigger than who it was, or even who was shot, for that matter. Because the lady that died on the train the other day, right, the white lady that was stabbed in the neck, that died in the train the other day, or the two school shootings that have gone on in the last 10 days, it's all still part of the same bigger systematic issue, in my opinion. Grumpy, you were shaking your head.
Oh, I agree with you. I agree with you. I like to address. Mario said something before we got live that echoes a lot of what a lot of people are saying, and I'd really like to address it. So Mario asked, why do I feel the way I do? And I've been giving this a lot of thought, and it's a good place to start. So the radical left in the United States has been ratcheting up political violence over the last decade or so. And I'm gonna step beyond that. If I say the name Lavoy Finicum, how many people do you think would know that name? Not very many.
I know who he is.
You do. I know you do. I know the people in this group probably know who he is. But for the most part, people wouldn't know that. And here's the reason why. Because while we may have agreed with him politically and morally, him, if you don't know who he is, he was one of the Malheur wildlife area people. They went in there and took it over, and he was gunned down by the FBI. All right, he was assassinated by the FBI. But he was soon forgotten because he was an outlier. He was a radical, and a lot of people have nothing in common with him. And so the political left, the radical left, starts ratcheting up the violence. And it happens to politicians. If I mention the name Melissa Hortman, who on the panel knows who that is?
Melissa Hortman?
Hortman. Mm-mm. She was the Minnesota state legislature that was gunned down by a leftist in her doorway. We don't know her. We don't get really upset whenever a Republican congressman gets shot at, or the softball game gets shot at, because they're politicians, and quite honestly, they don't have a lot in common with us. And President Trump, again, while we may agree with him and we may be very upset because they tried to assassinate him, there's no connection there. There's no connection there. Charlie Kirk, on the other hand, held the same beliefs that we hold. He had the same faiths that most of us hold. He was an ordinary person that was doing something very extraordinary. And when they assassinated him, they assassinated us. They assassinated one of us. And people know instinctively that if they can do that to somebody like Charlie Kirk, they will have zero compunction doing it to them if it comes to it. And that's why it hits so hard, because of that realization right there. He was one of us.
Well said. And I think I share that same sentiment, that he was one of us, that he spoke the values that we stood for, that he stood up for life before it was born. He stood up against abortion. He stood up for the children. And man, talk about a guy that could take a punch over and over and over and not return one in hate, and how effective that is. And I've been talking to a few friends the last few days about this, and one was a prison minister. He saw a lot of things, but one of the things that he had to encounter was losing his own son to a drunk driver, and he had offered forgiveness to the man who killed his son and fled the scene and was caught and then had brought to justice. But on live news, he had given forgiveness to this man, and he pointed out something to me. He said that the time that Charlie died was 12:24, we'll say, and he said, if you look in John 12:24, it says, but Jesus, and they were searching for Jesus, and Jesus answered them saying, the hour has come that the Son of Man should be glorified. Most assuredly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the ground, it dies. It remains alone. But if it dies and produces much grain, he who loves his life will lose it, and he who hates his life in this world will keep it for eternal life. And I look at that and I think of what Charlie's work was all about, and I think about what Christ's work was all about. And when they silenced Christ, it only amplified him over and over, and much fruit came from his death. But they tried to do the same thing to Charlie, and I just hope and pray that people are paying attention, and that this is not in vain, and that voice gets amplified louder and louder. Because Christianity, when Christ died, Satan overplayed his hand then, and Satan overplayed his hand now. He got into the minds of these children. He got into the lives by all the things that Charlie stood against, stood up for, which was broken homes and people that were being indoctrinated to hate America. And he was the counter to that. So now they take that voice away. I hope and pray that much fruit is brought from it, and that scripture that I read comes to life in all of our lives, and that we look for the people that Charlie was looking for, which is the kids that need guidance because they're not getting it at home, the kids that need love because they're not getting it at home, or the broken men that need repair because they didn't get it at home. And it's a harder job to change men than it is to raise boys. But Charlie saw that he could meet the masses. We don't have to do it that way. We can do it one-on-one with people, whether they're the kid that you see in the grocery store pushing a cart, or somebody that personal inside of your homes. The work has to continue. It has to continue. Our America falls, and he saw it, and he had a platform to stand on. He was able to reach the masses. We may not have that same platform that he had, but we do have people in our life that we can make a difference for. And if they make a difference for somebody else, then it was not in vain, and that we're paying attention. This is going to only glorify God and build our country to be stronger and better.
Matt, sharpshooter?
Go ahead. I like what you said, Mario.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
The angry side that I have to this, to touch on some of the things that you were talking about, Grumpy, is that you can't play both sides of the fence in the media. When you are the people like Obama or any of the lefts that have come out and said, this is terrible, we can't stand for this is all of these things, they're the same people that promoted all the hate. They're the ones that promoted all of the things that Charlie was against that were not sustainable for America. And so I'm angry about that. I'm angry at the reactions that a lot of them have given, and it's just lip service. So, I had this conversation with my son, and it didn't go so well because he felt as though there was just, one, it was too much for him to handle, and two, he felt there was judgment on the other side. And I said, son, I'm just trying to explain to you who your enemy is. Whoever shot Charlie isn't the end of this problem by bringing him to justice. The problem is all of the movement that we are trying to undo in our country of the things that are broken. And for that, it makes me angry that we have this fight that we have to continually combat against our children. So I look at my kids that have gone to these schools, they've been indoctrinated. There's undoing that needs to be undone. Oh, there's doing that needs to be undone, I should say, sorry. And the battle's real. I raised good kids. I brought them to church. I preached to them. I prayed with them. I woke up with them in the morning, and I went to bed with them at night, and we were a tight unit. And so we have a bond, and this is something that we'll get over. But there's a lot of homes out there that don't have that tight of a bond. And for the parents that don't have God in their life, that don't have a moral compass to go off of, this is where the fall comes.
Yeah, so how do you talked in there about the broken homes and all of that. Charlie talked a lot about that, about the nuclear family, for lack of a better words, right? And how do we bring that back to a country that's living paycheck to paycheck, that can't afford to buy a home, that how do you turn it around? How do you turn the need for family around?
Well, I think that he did it very well, and the facts that he pointed out to show what a broken family looks like, that a fatherless family looks like, and how our government has incentivized it. And to say you make more money when dad's not home than you do when dad is home. We see it in the school systems now. We've got a teacher that teaches a friend that teaches special ed in the local high school, and she has children that are not designed to be in those classes, and yet the parents are pushing to have the kids in there. So as the teacher comes and says, yeah, your child needs to be in regular classes, they say, no, I'm going to not get my paycheck anymore if they're in the normal classes. And so they would rather sell out their children and their future to have what's comfortable for them now. And that goes along with the saying of, you can ignore reality, but you cannot ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. And the reality is the things that Charlie's pointed out, statistically speaking, because we've tried this as a litmus test for so long now, we can see the fruit that comes from it, and it's not reproducing. We're continually making more and more takers than we are makers. And so his arguments that he would have, or debates with people when they would say, I can't get a job, I can't do this, I can't do all those things, he would debunk every time and say, are you getting up early? Are you doing this? Are you doing all of these things? Then don't tell me you're doing everything if you're not. Because if I can have the career path that I have without a college education, what can you do with one? So I think that Charlie, was very good at pointing out how you combat that problem and the necessary steps to do so.
Yeah, Matt, how do we make a family popular again, or having a family popular again?
I mean, I got some really controversial stuff to say on this. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Feminism's cancer.
I agree.
Modern feminism is cancer. Traditional feminism is healthy. Traditional feminism, what was the lady that ran for vice president with McCain from Alaska?
Sarah Palin.
Sarah Palin. Okay, they attacked her. The modern feminists attacked her and destroyed her and beat her down for what she had done, what she'd accomplished. She was a hero, really, to a lot of traditional women that I know, if you have this system that screams out, "Do as thou will," which is the only commandment in the Church of Satan, by the way. So do as thou will. Do what makes you happy. Oh, you're not happy with your husband? Divorce him. There's this, all these women that run around, the young women that are not married, and my husband, my potential husband needs to be over 6 feet tall, making more than 6 figures, needs to pay for all these vices that I have, getting my nails done and my hair did and buying me clothes and all this stuff. And I think that we're starting to see a turnaround of that, actually, because those women are failing. They're selling their bodies on OnlyFans, and they're starting to realize that has no value either, and it definitely has no future. And I see, from what I observe with my very wonderful traditional wife, we see on social media more and more young women that are stepping up and saying, "Hey, wait, I want to be a traditional feminist. I want to raise my children." And so this takes me to the next part of what's destroying the households and the families, which is consumerism, which I believe in my research goes back at least 70 years. The boomers, my parents, I'm a Gen X, I'm 51. They were raised to be consumers, and everything was about take vacations, buy new cars, buy a bigger house. I mean, think of how many people that, well, this is my starter house, and then I'm going to move to this house, then we're going to do this house, and we're going to do this house. These people never get a house paid for. My mom and dad's generation, they bought a house, paid for it, and you lived there. But we've changed into this consumerism of keeping up with the Joneses, as my mom would say. We got to make sure that we show off to this person and that person. And so then you had to have 2 incomes. And the powers that be saw that, and they said, "Oh, wow, we can collect a bunch more tax dollars out of that." Okay, so then that feeds into, well, you're not raising your children, so guess who raises your children? The government. I mean, I am so sick and tired of my children are forced to spend a majority of their time growing in a public school system. But the court, I've been divorced twice, the court won't listen to me because I'm the one that wants to homeschool the kids. And my older son actually is interested in that, or interested in going to this parochial private school that I have access to. But no, he spends the majority of his time in a public school. And the school that my kids go to is a great school. We picked the best school that we feel like we could find that's a public school that fits with what their moms want and the government wants. But at the same time, my 14-year-old son, who should be spending more time with me and men like you, learning how to be a great man, learning the skills. I believe it does take a village, because my son has told Tag things they wouldn't necessarily confide to me. And I trust that Tag, teaches him things because his value system is similar to mine. And I would feel comfortable with him being around Mario. And I know Grumpy's talked to him and Sharpshooter's talked to him. And not that the teachers at my son's school are bad, but I'm a firm believer that by about age 14, 15, the public school system has taught most boys a majority of what they need to know. And at that point, they need to start learning trades and learning how to be a man. And I guess maybe if I'm old-fashioned, I'm old-fashioned. But guess what? You just asked me what brings us back to family values, and I think that's it. And so if I'm not molding my son in that time, and the men around me are not molding him, then who knows who's molding him? I mean, and again, those are probably very unpopular views with a lot of people. But until we escape that and escape the divorce culture,
I would add, you got to bring back that masculinity, as well. But Sharpshooter, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Matt said. I mean, the breakdown society. Yeah, around the 50s or so, they started advocating consumerism. They started brainwashing. What is it? Give me a child till to the age of 5, and I'll give you the man. Well, they start advertising, pumping ads into kids, and programming them. And then, like my generation and below, the parents were both at work, so the kids got raised by the television a lot of times, and that, I mean, a lot of that just raised a generation of narcissists, and that's a big problem of what I think we're facing today in society is the I me factor. And in order, I think, to fix that, we have to get back to community, like what we are doing, trying to do here. You get with like-minded people, and that, I think, that is part of the solution to the problem. The getting your children, like Matt said, around like-minded people so that they can say, hey, it's not just, you don't have the schools pumping them 8 hours a day, 5, sometimes 6 days a week, telling them this is what you should think. And then they come home on the weekends when you get to see them 1, maybe 2 days a week after you've got them supper and to bed. You're very limited on time, and you're trying to instill in them the values that you feel. They don't have any incentive to believe you, though, because the rest of the time they're just getting pumped full of it at school. And then they see it in entertainment and music and the television they watch, and everyone's got a cell phone, so it's streamed to their brain in 30-second intervals constantly. And it's just sensory overload for children. And that makes it really easy for them to be moldable by negative influences. That's how you get people to, do dangerous things and harm other people, because it easily radicalizes them. And so, yeah, I mean, that's a big problem, is just the breakdown of the home and the community. And that's, I feel, what leads us to where we've gotten here today.
Mr. Grumpy, what do you think about this?
First, I want to backtrack a little bit, and I think I'm safe in saying this. Charlie Kirk would want us to pray for the soul of the shooter. All right, and that's a good place to start. And as a patriot and a conservative, and somewhat of a hothead sometimes, that's really hard for me to stomach. But we have to start there. The second thing, I want to piggyback on what Matt was saying. The gunman may have pulled the trigger and assassinated Charlie Kirk, but liberal ideology is what killed Charlie Kirk. And liberal females, liberal women, are the most dangerous thing in the country right now, because they are fanatical, and they in elementary to high school, they make up about 85% of the it's not that high, 65 to 75% of the educators in this country. So they are indoctrinating our kids at a very young age. It's happening. And everything that everybody else on the panel said about the children is absolutely correct. More importantly, though, is we need to teach people how to be parents. Because if you're not engaged as a parent, all that indoctrination they get is going to stick. We used to have to deprogram our children coming home from school when they were in high school. And we lived in a very conservative district, and we were still having to deprogram them back in 2010 to 2015. All right. So we need to teach people how to be parents, and the way you do that, and it's like this with anything. It starts with the individual, and as much as people don't want to see it, open dialogue. I think Ted, you said it earlier today. Open dialogue has to be part of the playbook, and we have to engage people, and we have to be able to talk, and that's only half of the equation, and the question doesn't involve the second half of the equation, and I'm sure it's going to come up in a little bit. But we change people's beliefs. I'm a huge advocate of understanding our why. We've had this conversation. Your why is what makes you do what you do, and a lot of people either don't know their why or they don't have a why. All right. And so whenever you're floating around like that rudderless, you are super susceptible to the indoctrination that the left puts out there. That's why they go after college age adults and high schoolers, and now elementary schoolers. That's why they go after them, because those individuals are not emotionally and mature enough. Most of them, I'm generalizing there. It's a very wide brush, and I apologize. But most of them are not emotionally mature enough to understand why they believe what they believe, so that they just glom on to anything they want. And liberalism, it's collective. I'm sorry, it's coercive collectivism, and that's what we're fighting against. And it, in the process of indoctrinating these people, it gives them a feeling that they're good people, and it gives them a feeling that they're important in the world. All right, and they're not. They're not. By virtue of the ideology that they're following, they are a nameless feature in a system. Period. The individual does not matter, right? And this is where the whole I'm a good person and I can say that Charlie Kirk deserved it. That's where that whole thing comes from, because they have this belief that they're a good person. And as far as I'm concerned, a lot of them are just evil as all get out. I'm seriously, they're evil. The ideology and the stuff that they spew. I was kind of curious on the 10th. I was down at my son's visiting the grandchildren's, and I was curious. So after they went to bed, I jumped on YouTube and started cruising a bunch of lives that were happening, because I wanted to see what people were saying. I wanted to get a gauge of what was going on. And the amount of vile, disgusting comments that were made just really shocked me. And that's hard to do in that case, you know? So we start fixing the family by fixing the individuals and teaching people how to be parents. And like Matt and Mario and Sharpshooter said, teaching young men to be young men. You know, there's a reason why the millennials are turning, the young men are turning conservative at a breathtaking rate. Charlie Kirk had a lot to do with that. But more importantly, they've grown up their entire lives being told that they are useless and they're evil, and that women would rather be in the forest with a bear than with them, and they're untrustworthy and they can do nothing and they're not needed. And why would somebody go into the ideology if that's the way the ideology feels about you, you know? So there you go. That's the long answer for me saying that we start with the individual.
You know, I think it's interesting that we started talking about feminism and we talked about all of these things when I think that bringing back the strong fathers who stick in the homes, who look after their kids, who have morals and values, who put their own needs aside for the betterment of their family, is the beginning building block of every single family. You know, there's many things I did prior to having a family that I no longer did because my family had to come first.
Mm-hmm.
It's like every other male out there. And so I think it starts with the strength and stopping the demasculating, masculine of men, and get rid of the modern form of feminism like you talk about, and try to make having a family popular again. You know, we've all talked on our podcasts about the birth rate won't even sustain at what it's at today. And so I think that would be a big push to come back. But I think it is even deeper than that. I mean, how do we change a culture that don't value life anymore? And this is I'm going to piss a lot of people off, and I don't really give a shit. We've murdered hundreds of millions of innocent American babies and continue to do it worldwide. We glorify death, just in what happened to Charlie. They did that very publicly for a reason, whoever they is. I don't even care who they is, because to me it doesn't even matter. But how do we fix a culture that no longer values life?
Well, Matt touched on something that hit home for me when you talk about your kids in the school and the indoctrination and what you got to do to detune them and so forth as well. What would it look like for the young parents who have children still in school? What would it look like if you showed up even 1 hour a week? Better yet, if you didn't have 1 hour, if you showed up 1 hour a month in one of their classrooms to be a part of their class, be a part of PE, or to be part of their games or their coaching, things they're doing, and then be a presence in that room. And if you did it even just once a month, but you started in a group of other fathers or mothers who had those children as well, that meant that every day some parent was in there being one of a beacon light, if you will, to the, I don't know if your school's allowed. I know for me, I was able to participate in that and be a part of my kids' school life. And in doing so, I was able to know their teachers, and knowing their teachers was iron sharpening iron. And that then trickled out to all the other kids, knowing that, hey, there's a watchdog in here as well. So if this teacher's saying things, indoctrinating my child in a way that isn't fit morally, then I can then stand up to that and challenge that person, rather stop it while it's happening than wait to try and clean up the mess after it's been done. And what would that look like for us just in our schools to go and be a part of even just our own child? Start in your own home. What does that look like? And then the caveat to that is where's mom in this? And Matt, I know you got a dynamic that you're dealing with that's less than desirable, and so I'll pray for you, brother, that God just paves that path for you and shows you how to be a beacon light, if you will, without that resistance from the other half. But what does it look like for the ones that don't have that dynamic, that do have a mother and a father in a home? Is the wife being supportive? Is she lifting her husband up? Is she showing the children this is what a healthy marriage looks like? I can understand why kids don't want to have a marriage and kids and stuff, because they figure, why do I want to screw up another life when mine's already been screwed up? And so the brokenness in the home is another problem. But I think if we follow these basic steps, I go by the 5 F's, which is faith, family, fitness, and finance. 4 F's, I'm sorry, faith, family, fitness, and finance. And I put those in that priority. And the Bible tells us that the husband is the head of the wife as Christ is the head of the church. So if we are chasing after Jesus and our wife is chasing after us, who's she chasing after? She's chasing after somebody who's godly. She's chasing after somebody who's just like Jesus. And we're to mirror that. And so what does Jesus look like? You're not going to find out until you pick up that Bible. And then when you do, then you start to teach it to your children so that they know what Jesus looks like as well. So that the day that they become a parent, that they can be just like their father and chase after their father. And they'll find a wife that will naturally be attracted to that. And this is how you change it.
You know what, Mario, I want to speak to something you said at the beginning there. Your school that permitted you to participate is unique in America. The school that my children go to is unique in that way that I feel invited to participate in some ways with some of the school. But the school that my son previously went to, and we're talking rural Kansas here, okay? It was pretty clear to me that they really didn't want me there. And I'll tell you a little story.
Want and allowed are two different things, though.
Well, force your foot in the door if you got to.
Yeah, so what that school did is they had this thing where, okay, here's the designated day that the dads get to be here, and you're the watchdog dad, and you stand by the front door, but you don't get to participate really in anything. But prior to that, at that same school, it was like first or second grade for my eldest son now, and we're talking, almost 10 years ago. I went up and inserted myself at Halloween, okay? And a really interesting thing happened. I went to the boys' room with my son to help him with his costume because he had kind of a complicated costume that I'd made for him. And while I'm in there, there's all these other little boys, and I'm the only other adult male in there, and they're like struggling with their costumes and their masks and whatever else. And so I'm helping 28 other little boys in there. On the other side, in the girls' room, there's, umpteen mothers in there, and, all the little girls are getting help. And as soon as I try to leave the boys' room, there's another boy, because, there was 5 grades at this school. And so I agree with what you're saying, that we need to be involved as parents. I think particularly fathers, should be more involved as much as they can. But again, the schools have to permit it. And I'm going to tell you, there's going to be a lot of schools across America that just don't want you there. And if you exhibit any of this toxic masculinity or insert, your conservative viewpoints, boy, you're going to get shuttled away pretty quickly.
But I totally support what you're saying, and I also want to echo what you said too about marriage. So my current marriage now, my wife for 3 years. That's we live a traditional marriage style. My sons see that every day. They my wife and I discuss, on a regular basis that it's incumbent upon us to exhibit success, to exhibit to them what a good marriage is. We're not screaming at each other all the time. We're respecting each other, just teaching them what the good marriage should look like. And I'm fortunate that I came from a household where my mother and father, were married and with each other until the day my dad died, which was, just a few years ago. And they were from high school. And not everybody has that. And if you're not from that, break the cycle. And I mean, there's some of my friends maybe right here that, broke that cycle and have really strengthened themselves, to be different than what they grew up in. But yeah, again, Mario, what you're saying is you got to be involved. Got to be involved.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Sharpshooter, either one of you want to tackle why we don't value life anymore?
Why we don't value life, or how do we change it?
How do we change a culture that doesn't value life?
I don't think you can. I don't think you can change a culture like that. The only thing you can do is overpower it, destroy it. And I know that sounds kind of violent, but I'm not talking in a physically violent way. But you start with the individual and you push back. Anytime you're into somebody like that if they've got an abortion, pro-abortion sticker on their car, you confront them and ask them why they're for murdering children in the womb. Some states they murder them outside the womb. If they're born alive, they leave them in a room to die. They're literally doing it outside the womb. And you push back, and at the same time, it's all about narrative. All right. So the one thing the left is really good at is painting a rosy picture, and it, when looked at objectively, it turns out it's all lies. But they paint a picture that people find attractive because it gives them power and it gives them meaning. We, as patriots and conservatives, need to start painting a better picture. One of the things I truly feel we dropped the ball, especially Gen Xers like from my generational peers, is we dropped the ball because we just didn't want to be. We wanted to be left alone. All right, and still to this day, I still want to be left alone. But going back to what Matt said and what Mario said, yes, you have to, as a father, you have to be involved. And I'm telling you what, guys, if your school pushes you away like Matt said they do, you become that guy. You let those educators know that they do not own your children. They are not to raise your children. They are not to indoctrinate their children. And if you run across an educator that's doing that, you get in their face, you stay on top of them, you let them know that they are being watched, and you complain about them loudly. Confront them every chance you get. Paint a narrative that shows exactly how bad and evil their thoughts are.
That's why school choice is important, Grumpy. I mean, what I did after that was I took my kids to a different school.
Well, and see, Missouri doesn't have that. Like, we couldn't do that. But what I could do, and I did do, was I let the teachers know that I was watching, and I went and talked to principals and school board members and superintendents. Both my wife and I did whenever things started getting out of line. And there's something else. Somebody pointed out to me, school boards across the country are predominantly liberal. All right, and conservatives, a lot of people, and again, this is a wide brush. All right, I understand that, but a lot of people don't want to be involved in that kind of stuff because they've got lives to live, whereas liberals like controlling people, and those are the type of things you find them on HOAs, you find them on school boards, you find them on volunteer committees, you find them all throughout the system because they like control. It gives them a sense of power and a sense of meaning. So one of the things we can do is become involved. You guys, I'm going to say you guys coerced me into applying for the zoning board or the zoning committee.
We did.
But in retrospect, it's something I should have done. It not necessarily that in particular, but doing something like that is something I should have done a long time ago. And I said it in that short that I made last night that, by the way, got me so much hate. I've got the inappropriate comments turned on, so they were all held. And I just basically deleted them all because it wasn't worth digging through and because of the amount of hate I got from it. But we dropped the ball, and it's not too late for us to step up and start making a difference. All right. And the only reason why I'm going that way and not reiterating what everybody else said about being a dad and the parents and everything is because they're absolutely correct. But there's more to it than just that. And we can do everything that we can. We can try as hard as we can to defeat liberal ideology and paint a better picture. But the simple fact is that they're still out there indoctrinating. They're violent now. They've let the genie out of the bottle, and they are violent now. All right. So we can do open dialogue. We can become involved, and just know this: you're going to paint a target on yourself if you become involved. Period. The radical left, and they are all over. In fact, I guarantee you that a lot of you got some in your family. The radical left has taken Punching Nazi to a brand new level, and they're applauding it. It's obvious that they want us dead. And like I said it before, how do you negotiate with somebody that wants to kill you or wants to see you dead or would applaud you being killed? How do you negotiate? And how do you talk to somebody like that? You can't.
I say you show them what it is that you want, which is peace and which is love. And like going back to Charlie and the example that he set was, man, the guy could take a punch. To have the rudest of the rudest people say the most vile things to him and still be able to turn the other cheek and say, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to kick you off my stage and allow you to not talk. I'm going to continue to come at you with love. And for the ones that he won over, it was worth it. And again, I go back to that teaching of, if you love somebody that already loves you, what have you gained? But when you've truly gained the love and respect of an enemy, you've gained something for life. And when it's a matter of being able to change someone's mind. And like he said, when we stop talking is when things go bad. And
okay, Mario, I want to ask you a question. Then I want to ask you a question. How well has the policy of open dialogue and not pushing back worked so far? How's it gone in the culture war?
Well,
where are we now?
Time will tell with this one, because when you look at just right now, the people that you would expect to lash out and hate and ugliness, they're on watch. Some of the news stations that you would have expected to retort with hate and so forth realize they're being watched, just like a father being in a classroom with a child has got that teacher on watch. So first of all, they behave differently, and you give them something to stand against. So how is it working? I can't tell you that it's working great up till recent, with the results of Charlie being shot and assassinated, with Trump being shot at, and so on and so forth. But I'd also say that it also comes down to a policy change that needs to come into play, which is already coming into play. And so as we see the contrast, when we defund police, when we take God out of school, when we take God out of our government, when we take God out of all these things, and that when we try it your way, it doesn't work. So we have to have the contrast, unfortunately, for there to be the change. So will Charlie's death be in vain? And to answer your question, how does it work? Well, time will tell when we see that people have either stood up and become a louder voice, and that we will not go quietly in the night, as they say, and that we're going to stand for our truths and our freedoms and our values, and we're going to do it to protect the innocent. How many of those kids were Charlie's? None. But he had a drive to protect the innocent. So I say the same goes for us. And if you can't see it on a large scale, just start with what's in front of you. Start with what's in front of you now, your family, your home, your children, or the locals around you and the community that you have. And that's where you make a change. We're not going to change the world. I'm not going to change everybody in all the countries that are jacked up. I'm not going to change the people in the other states that are jacked up. And there will always be evil. And there will always be the battle. The battle will never be over until we leave this earth. But for the time being that we're here, while we try to make a difference and do the best with what we have, to me, start with the things that are right in front of you, and try to make the difference there, and pray and vote for good leaders if that hopefully will do what they're supposed to do, because we can do on our part. Now we have the authorities at hand. So when we vote, when we change minds of people to vote in directions just like we did in this last election, not to say that I'm for one side being perfect and the other one's flawed. We both got flaws, but we got the lesser of the two evils with this election. And it's because we changed minds in the voters, and people like Charlie and his movement won that election for Trump. And people like Charlie and his movement are going to win the battle for the kids that are being indoctrinated in schools right now. And there, you can already see that, like you said earlier, the conservative side is growing at a mass rate right now. So we're not going to see all the results that we want overnight. It's a frog in a pot that we have to look at, but we're also turning the temperature down as well when we make a difference in our homes. And if that's all that we can do, then at least when we stand before our Creator and have to answer, what did you do with the blessings that I gave you? You're not going to fail at that question. And because you can't solve the entire world's problems doesn't mean that we still don't have a responsibility to deal with the things that we have in front of us in our own homes. These are our blessings. Be responsible with them. Be fruitful with them. Tag made a point to me at one point, and he said, we don't put glyphosate in the ground because we have a responsibility to take care of this planet. We also have a responsibility to take care of our loved ones and the things that we be entrusted with. So what I've been entrusted with, I don't want to stand before God and have to answer anything other than I did my best. I did my best. And if that's all that we can do, then we can lay our head on our pillows at night and sleep with contentment, knowing that you did the best that you could do.
Mario, I think I would argue the conservative side is exactly what they've been doing for the last 75 years, and it's progressively gotten worse. We're not making any ground. We're losing ground. Now, you might be able to make the argument that now is the time it's going to turn and it's going to head the other way.
Yeah.
Maybe you could make that argument, but I'm just going to tell you from my perspective, I think all of this, I hate to say it this way, but all this, let's just play nice and worry about ourselves and these kind of things.
That's not what I'm saying.
This is where we're at. This is why our food system is poison, our air is poison, our kids are being indoctrinated. The justice system is corrupt. I mean, this is why we're the way we are, is because strong men didn't stand up. And please respond, because I was not suggesting you were saying this.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying be bold. Get in your classrooms. Get involved in your kids' life. Stand in front of them. That's not sitting back and doing nothing. That's taking control of what you can do within your home. Unless you're going to become a political activist and go out and stand on some soapbox in the street corners and start to do what Charlie was doing, then that's what you do. But if you're going to become some sort of political activist where we all rise up to say, we're all done, Uncle Sam, and we're done taking it your way, then this is what you can do. And so if you want to have the conversation of what it looks like to become some sort of political activist, that we can stand up before our leaders and say, this isn't working and we want something else, then that's another conversation. But when I look at what our leaders are doing right now to try and combat the heinous crimes that are taking place, they're sending the National Guard into places like DC to be able to stand and make a presence. They're sending the National Guard into places like California to say, we're not going to put up for any more of your idiocy, whatever word I'm looking for your craziness, to burn down and riot and do all the things that you want to do. So we're on watch, and as we try to do what we said by close our borders and stop the chaos and stop the bleeding, we're making ground. Is it all going to change overnight? I don't think so, but I think that it's not all doom and gloom. I think that there are things that we can celebrate as victories that are progress, because we're not in a mode right now of defund the police and take these things away. We're in a mode right now of saying, stop the chaos, stop the borders, stop these people, deport the illegals, deport the criminals. And so we're seeing movement. And that's all I can do is call balls and strikes. And is the system broken? Are we in a state of despair? Are all of you guys right? 100%. But, balls and strikes again.
Now, Matt.
Oh, God, there's just so much here, guys. Pete the Squash said, what would Jesus do? Let's see. John 2, he grabbed cords and made a whip, and they knocked over the tables and ran the money changers out. Jesus also said, sell your cloak and buy a sword. I mean, this is not all peace and love, guys. And Mario, I love you. You're a great guy. But my Bible is full of both sides. God commanding men to go out and do what was necessary and punishing them when they didn't do exactly what he said at the level that he said. And I'm not saying that we should go out and take up arms with people, but what I am saying that I've said to several people on social media lately, I'm drawing a line, okay? So my line is, over here are people I'll still, participate with and engage. Below here are sociopaths, okay? I'm not engaging with sociopaths anymore. And when I say sociopaths, anyone that's thrown out there and says, hey, Charlie Kirk's death was great, he got what he deserved, or, saying FAFO about this, I'm done. A really wise, very experienced psychologist who's been 43 years in the business told me one time about someone I had to deal with. He says, never try to rationalize the thoughts or actions of an irrational person. And he told me that 5 years ago. And I've looked at that many times. I have to remind myself, and I'm telling all of you, remind yourselves, don't rationalize the thoughts or actions of an irrational person. America, we are in the time of weak men, okay? We are going to have to be the strong men that make the change back to the good times. This is the turning has happened. And I'm telling you, we're not going to get it through all peace and love and prayer, because God commanded his people to do a lot of hard things. And again, I literally yesterday told somebody, I pray that God will shine his light to make a path so that the person or persons responsible for this assassination, this murder, see his light and no other, so that they can come to the goodness. But that's the best I can do. I'm trying to beg for the forgiveness and pray for them, but at the same time, they need justice.
Well, all that being said, the question is what are you going to do?
What am I going to do? This morning, I had a discussion with my son about, while he's at a ball game tonight, how he might have to act in case there's an active shooter.
Okay.
My children, we've done fire drills in the house. We're a rather prepared family in this household, okay? But it just struck me different that, gosh, what I need to go over this with my son, because frankly, most of the proposals by the people in education are just dead wrong. Oh, go hide. Go hide behind the door, stupid stuff like that. No, run away, do something, move. You're in a gunfight, move, shoot back, throw stuff. But that's not what we're doing in society. I think we need to arm more people, not disarm people. And I'm sure that's unpopular with a lot of people. And again, hey, if you're under this line, too bad. If you're above this line, get some training. Don't just buy a gun, get some training. Don't go do stupid stuff and harm people because they've got a particular letter by their name or a particular nationality, because I think that's stupid too. But get active and learn how to protect yourselves in these situations. I've been shot at before in a public setting, okay? I was in Modesto, California at a Mardi Gras event downtown. We had half the street blocked off. I'm standing there with friends, and some guys shoot across the crowd with an AK-47 right away, because I have experience and I have training. I grabbed the people I was with down to the ground, and they're saying, what is that, fireworks? They said, no, that's rifle fire. Get on the ground. Well, fortunately, they were shooting above our heads at the first level of the parking garage above us, so no one down in the crowd got hit, that I'm aware of. And it didn't make national news because this was, 20 years ago, okay? Because shootings like that occur in California all the time. Let's not kid ourselves. But, again, get yourselves educated. Figure out what you're going to do when these things happen. Shoot back.
Yeah. Hey, Sharp, we haven't heard from you in a bit.
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to personal responsibility. How are we going how do we get those that hate us to love us? And I agree wholeheartedly with Mario. You show them by example, and you do that by, I mean, not to sound like a broken record, but you start at home. You start with your children. You show them. Our children comment about us all the time about how strong our relationship is, and I think that will help them as they grow and formulate relationships with their spouses. And you hope that grows to community and outward. And then, you get involved. You go to your, like Mario said, you go to your schools if they'll let you. You get involved in, I mean, a lot of people get involved in PTA, like we were saying earlier. You get a lot of that, as I like to refer to it, as the toxic femininity that gets there. The ones that are pushing the toxic masculinity. And if you don't like what's being said in the schools, you got to get involved in that or do something else. We homeschool our kids, which is a huge sacrifice because we feel that that's one way that we can kind of control that message that's being portrayed to them. But I mean, Grumpy said something earlier. It's coercive collectivism, and that's very prevalent in schools because children want that they want to feel like they belong to something. And if they're in schools and that's being pushed, that there's a directive being pushed at schools, they will naturally tend to do that, to be a part of a group. And we've got to be able to tell them when they're home, it's okay to be different than what they are or what they believe. It's okay. You don't have to. You have to stand up for your beliefs. It's, I tell them it's all about autonomy and personal responsibility to that. And you got to encourage them to lead by example. And you have to start with the kids. I mean, you got to start with a generation so you can perpetuate that. But you also have to be prepared because, like Matt and Grumpy said, if they really want to do you harm and you can't rationalize with an irrational person, you show them love, but you got to still be prepared. You do prep yourself. You do tell your children, just in case, this is what you do, this is what you believe. You can't use, I guess, apathy or ignorance as an excuse when the time comes and you're just like, oh, well, I didn't know. Well, a lot of us can see that. I mean, that's why we're talking about it now. You see the writing on the wall that times are changing, and there is that I mean, there has to be a turning point, right? We can't just sit around and talk about it. We have to get involved. We have to encourage that. You have to let the liberal leftism die by attrition. If they preach abortion, we just got to spread more about anti-abortion, because ultimately their ideology will kill itself out if you allow it. I mean, because it's not sustainable. And so the more we lead by example and show other people and encourage that and encourage the positive part of masculinity and what it is to be a real man and to be a husband and to be a father and be able to portray that onto the community, the more it'll spread.
But sharpshooter, I'll ask you, how is that sustainable? If what we do is grab a hold of our families and huddle into a cocoon, and we do that, again, the reason why I'm kind of opposed to homeschooling is because we only affect our kids. How do we make systematic change in a system that preys upon innocence by huddling in a corner and hiding?
Well, and that's the point of community, right? That's the point of getting out and being able to say it. because not everybody, you have to have multiple facets. You can't have one person doing everything, right? So there are those that can go to the school board meetings and do all that, and that can change there. Just because one person or there's a collective of people that homeschool their kids together doesn't mean another group doesn't have kids that go to the same school, and you band together and decide, okay, we'll go to the PTA meetings, this meeting and this meeting, and you can go, to the other ones. And because it really does, you have to start with as local as possible. But I mean, to an extent, I get what you say with the homeschooling, but then you teach your children to evangelize that too, right? So you're spreading it, getting them to spread it out into the community, and they can spread that message.
You know what B said to me tonight?
Yeah.
Right before the live, she leaned over, she gave me a kiss on the cheek and said, "You have to build a school."
I mean,
that's not a crazy idea.
If you're gonna call it a school, just use the warehouse.
Yep, Matt, what do you got? Grumpy, what do you got?
I want to ask you and Mario in particular. So, what would it take for what level of threat does it take for you to stop and say, okay, well, I can't solve this with love and prayer. I'm going to have to use defense. I mean, and another two parts to the question: have either one of you actually been shot at by someone who was firing at you in anger?
So I'll respond to that. So yeah, just recently, Jen and I, in fact, I'm set to testify in a shooting that took place here in Arkansas about 8-9 months ago, where there was attempted murder, and we sat and witnessed it. Was the anger towards Jen and I? No. But I grew up in California, brother, and so I grew up around a lot of things. I worked in LA. I was there while the Rodney King riots took place, and I had to go and work in it. I traveled with a gun and a shotgun under my seat, and so I know what fear's about. I know what being in a big city's about as well, and having to combat that. So if that answers Rodney King riots, sorry, Jen, correcting me. I got a watchdog.
We love her.
Is Angela down there?
She's probably talking to Jen right now. Did he say it? Anyways, but what would it take, brother? It wouldn't take much. I've taken my kids down into Mexico, and I remember one guy just cheating my kid out of some money at a vendor's booth, and even being in a foreign country and standing up, for my family, it was a matter of, I'm ready to throw down with somebody just for cheating my kid out of $20. So don't invite the warrior out in me, because there's one that lives in every man who has a family.
Well, hey, let's look at that, Mario. Let's look at that. I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you so we can have some dialogue here.
Sure.
So you said that you were ready to throw down with a guy that cheated your son out of $20.
Yeah.
And I would say to you that perhaps that person's not a sociopath; he's just a thief, and you're ready to fight him. But a little bit ago, you're preaching to us that we should, show love to sociopaths. And Caleb, I'm going to pick on you. And, just so the public knows here, we're all friends, and, we don't hate each other over the things, but we're going to have this dialogue here so that everyone can learn.
I never used the word sociopath.
No, I did. I'm calling them sociopaths. I'm calling the people
you got a level here. You get two levels. The sociopaths are down here, and those are the ones that you're not going to change, so you're not bothering with them.
Okay, good, because that was not what I heard from you earlier. I've heard both of you guys in this discussion saying that we're going to solve this through showing love and showing. And I'm going to tell you, these crazy people, they just don't care. The blue-haired crazy people and the people that are confused, a lot of them Charlie Kirk interviewed. I saw some of them were like, ding, a light went off. But I saw a lot of them were just like, yeah, I hate this guy. Hate. And they're not going to change until they get some sort of wellness for their mental health. Love's not going to solve the problem.
There's the saying. There's a lot that goes along with that. don't argue with a man who knows he's right, is the simplest way to put it. And I say that even then there is something that can come from it, because again, if you go back to Charlie Kirk, he had a lot of idiots stand up in front of him and just say ludicrous things, but he didn't change their mind. But you know whose minds that he did change was all the people that were watching the conversation go down, and they're going, well, I can see the contrast between common sense and crazy. And so because those guys had that conversation, you're now influencing those that are watching. So we're always being, watched by somebody, and we're always advocates for something as well. And so we're advocates for the kingdom of heaven first, right? We're advocates for our family name and the people that are around us and our family that we support. We're advocates for our town, for our state, for our country. And if we're being watched, then what kind of advocates are we going to be? And so what are you being more effective at? Are you being more effective at being angry and violent? Or are you being more effective at being a good conversationalist who has his facts down, that can preach truth, stand on it, and be undisputed with the knowledge and the facts that you present? And so to me, that becomes more effective, because brute didn't win the battle. Common sense won the battle. Knowledge won the battle. Facts won the battle. And so those are the things that Charlie brought to the forefront. He was a master at it, and his memory was just spot on with so many things that he could just recite scripture down to case law. He had it down. I can't be that guy. I'm not going to try. I could try to be that guy. I guess I can polish, my craft, if you will, to try and be better. But I can also polish my craft in my self-defense. I can also polish my craft in my whether it be preparedness or alertness and being vigilant to the things that are around me, and then teach my kids to have situational awareness and so forth. My conversations with my sons when I had it the other day was, watch your six, be on alert, because tensions are high and the temperature is turned up right now. And I don't know what you're going to experience in the cities that you live in or the workplace that you're at, but here's the buzz that's happening around. So please be on alert. It's not, hey, run out and hug somebody and preach love to a crazy person that wants to kill you. I don't want to be heard that way. That's I'm soft when it comes that way. I'm nice until I'm not, and I'm called. If you're called to be a warrior, then there's a time for that. And if you're called to be a peacemaker, if we are called to be like Christ, then that's what we're to be as well. So yes, Jesus got angry. Yes, he stood up against it. Yes, he rebuked all the things that we're rebuking today in our current times, but he also did it with love, and he was very effective at the way that he did things. So he didn't say, don't roll over and be a doormat, so that he didn't say roll over and be a doormat so that people can take advantage of you. And any Christian who reads the Bible will know that there is a time for war and there's a time for peace. And so you just have to have discernment through a case-by-case situation. When you're confronted with the crazy guy shooting at you, you stop, drop, and roll, or do whatever you're going to do. That's the fight.
Beware the warrior in the garden.
There you go.
No one's afraid of a gardener. Be afraid of the warrior that's in the garden.
Yeah, exactly.
And I want to say, what you said earlier about Charlie Kirk. That's why I've been telling people they killed one of the best of us.
Yeah.
Because I'm not cut out to do what he did. I can do that to some degree, but I can't do it day in and day out. He was truly called by God and convicted to do what he did. And they killed, assassinated, murdered one of the best of us.
Yep, 100%. You're right, and that's what hurts so much, because he was that polished version that we wished we could be. But I can only take a lesson out of his book and try to go out and just carry on with the work that he started. So I'm going to do just that. And if I get called to be that warrior, rest assured I will be that. But I'm going to try peace first.
Sure, of course.
And one would argue that he did it with love. He touched millions of people without being angry, without battling anyone. And like I said, I did say that with love, but I did say that you have to be prepared too. And you're right. I mean, the crazy blue hairs aren't going to listen. You have to be ready for them. But what is it? You get more flies with honey than with vinegar, right? I mean,
Abraham Lincoln said you attract more flies with a drop of honey than a gallon of gall.
There you go. So, I mean, you can preach love, but yeah, you still have to be prepared for when they, I mean, but I think the message is more accepted. When you come out of a place of anger or aggression, people are less likely to hear you because they don't want to. When you go at them saying, "Well, you're just an angry blue hair," well, maybe they're just trying. I mean, Cupcake's got blue hair right now. You can't just judge them because they got blue hair. You got to give them a chance first before you judge, right?
I get what you're saying, but I mean, it's just like, people say Marines eat crayons, and I've never seen Grumpy eat crayons.
You're around me 24/7. Hey, listen, guys. Listen, you guys have all been putting rounds on paper, and what you're saying is all correct. I want to dial it in. I want to start putting rounds in the 10 ring. Okay, so here's my thoughts on this. I said it before. Open dialogue is necessary. It is one half of the equation here, and you're absolutely correct. We have to approach it in a rational and well-reasoned manner, just like Charlie Kirk did, in order to be effective. And we aren't going after the violent radical left. Those aren't the ones who are the targets of that conversation. It's the people that are in the middle, the middle grounders, the ones who are in it because it makes them feel good, and they've been indoctrinated. Those are the ones that we go after, and that's how we form our arguments. Again, we paint a better picture, and the one thing Charlie Kirk was really good at. I don't know which one of you said it, but allowing them to make themselves look like fools. He was really good at that, and he did it with a smile. And he wasn't doing it out of malice. He was just doing it to show a contrast between our reality and their reality. But if you think that we can talk our way out of this situation, you are whistling past the graveyard, because you cannot reason with people that want to kill you.
Right.
You can't. The history is littered with the bodies of people that thought that they could reason with the people that were there to kill them. All right. So what's the other half of the equation? Violence. Violence is an answer. It's not the go-to answer. It's not the one we turn to right off the bat. We don't turn to it out of anger or malice. But we have to have the capability to do violence in order to make the first part of the equation, the open dialogue, happen. Because if that threat of violence is not there, they will walk all over us, and they will continue. I said it, the genie's out of the bottle. Expect more pundits to get shot. Seriously, more attempts are going to be made. That genie is out of the bottle. The left squeezed that tube of toothpaste of political violence for years, and with Charlie Kirk, they finally got the lid off of it. All right, and what it's done is it scared a bunch of normal people that thought that the left was just benign, and they've come to realize that they're not benign, that it is violent, and the violence is part of the ideology at this point. It hasn't always been like that, but it's like that now. So I've become an advocate of what somebody described as preemptive defense. Mario made the point that what, you can become an activist? Yes. Every single one of us needs to become an activist. Every single one of us. Anytime we're confronted with somebody that's spouting liberal ideology, we should confront them in a well-reasoned manner. We don't call them names. We don't belittle them, but we confront them, and we make them own it publicly. All right? And if they decide to get violent, then we handle it. We should be prepared to handle it, and handle it in a very extreme manner. I'm not saying go over the top. I'm not saying heads on a pike right off the bat. What I'm saying is you respond in kind. You learn how to escalate deadly force, and you use the force continuum to defend yourself. But we're being preemptive. And yeah, that person that you're running into at the grocery store that's talking about abortion like it's a good thing, or the person that's saying stuff about Charlie Kirk's widow, they don't have anything to do with your family, but they're affecting somebody else, and it's not trying to change the world. It's trying to affect what's around us. These people are in our communities. And if we allow them to run unfettered like we have for the past 75, 80, 100 years almost, then they're going to continue to do what they do, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And eventually, if we don't do something now, it's going to get to the point where we can do nothing at all. Because at best, 12 years is what we have before the leftists get back in control. And if you think when they get back into control that they are not going to legislate their way into permanent power, you're kidding yourself. They learned their lesson with Trump twice. The next time they get into office, the weaponization of the government is going to be on steroids compared to what it was under Biden and Obama, right? And Tag, that montage. I love the montage you did of all the newscasters and politicians. You know, those same people are out there now saying, "Oh, we violence isn't the answer. Violence isn't the answer." And people on the right, the spokesman for the sheriff's office, when they gave the press conference about capturing that knucklehead today, one of the things he said was, "We don't want, violence isn't the answer." He did that thing. And every single politician, every single Republican politician is up there saying the exact same thing. Are they going to protect you? No, they're not. We are responsible for our own safety and our own well-being. That's one of the keystones of what we believe in as the group that we're in, the demographic that we're in. At least I would hope that would be the case. All right. I would hope that's the case. But they're not going to save us. So if you are sitting there saying, well, we can't be violent. No, we should be violent. We should be righteously angry, and we should be able to engage in violence at the drop of a hat if need be to defend ourselves. All right. And somebody made a point today. I said this in Discord. We're hunting monsters at this point. This is what we're doing. We are hunting monsters, or more realistically, we're facing monsters. Okay. But eventually, if you don't want to get eaten by the monster, you've got to fight back, and you've got to hunt it down and kill it. All right. And the danger there is that we don't want to become the monsters that we're hunting, and becoming the monster that we're hunting is very, very easy to do because it feels good. It feels good. If you've ever been in that situation, it feels good, and that's the wrong thing. But at some point, chances are that we are going to have to become a monster of some sort. And I would rather that monster be somebody that's protecting my family and people that believe the same thing that I do than somebody that's out there hate-filled and promoting a culture of death, like Tag put it. All right. So
but if you're not called grumpy, if you're not called to that fight on a daily basis, meaning you don't have the threat of some lunatic trying to kill your kids or shoot up a school, how do you make a difference in the lunacy? I think is what Tag's question is. Like, what do you do to make a difference in the lunacy?
So Irina Yunovich, wherever her last name was, the young lady in Charleston, she was going home from work. That man stood up and stabbed her in the neck. Yep. 15 arrests. He stabbed her in the neck. So the threat of violence is there constantly. All right. The only way you're going to avoid it is by never interacting with anybody ever. Right. Going out in public, going to school, going to your child's school. Those children at the Catholic Church, the last one up in Minnesota. He stood outside the window and shot them, killed 2 of them and wounded 14 or 15 more. All right. So the threat of violence is always there. And the violence that we're seeing is caused by the radical violent left. All right. The ideology is creating that stuff. So there's the answer to that question. That's
not an answer though. That's you're telling me more stories. What I'm asking is, what do you, Grumpy, Matt, Sharpshooter, Tag, and anybody else that's listening, what do you do to combat lunacy when it's not brought to the forefront of when you're not the person on the subway or on the train or on the bus or in the alley or whatever that's getting beat up or whatever, but that left wing craziness is there. You see when you go into the grocery stores or for me, I told Jen, I said, I'm glad I traveled back on Tuesday instead of Wednesday, because Tuesday I was confronted with a lady boy as my flight attendant on a plane. And when I got off the plane and I had to go to the grocery store to go get some food, I was confronted with a ton of LGBTQ flavors at the store that I was at. And as I'm looking at their ideologies and the craziness and the clothes they're wearing and the makeup and just the debauchery that they've done to their bodies, I'm like, well, I don't know, I don't want to stereotype you guys, but you kind of probably, I could guess that you wouldn't align with all the things that I align with. And so if we were to have a conversation, we would not be like-minded. How do you combat that lunacy before it becomes the crazy on the bus or the train or at a rally? How do you combat that? What do you do with that?
You make that type of behavior and that type of ideology unacceptable in society.
How? Tell me.
By becoming an activist, by confronting them. And I'm not saying going out and looking for problems. Quite frankly, I don't care if some dude wants to dress up like a woman. What I care about is when they try to start indoctrinating little kids and they start advocating mutilating preteens. That's what I care about. So if one of them starts talking about that, you push back. I don't care if you're in school or you're at the grocery store or you're on the bus. You push back and you call them out on it. We have to become activists. And if there's a rally,
you run into somebody that's not like-minded, you see that they've got their soapbox and they're preaching that they want to kill babies and make everybody gay. What do you do with that?
You confront them. You go armed with facts and you confront them just like Charlie Kirk did. All right. So
and to me, that's not violence. That's free speech. That's you counteracting lunacy with logic.
Yeah, but we saw what happens. We saw what happens with the violent left. Now, they murdered Charlie, or they assassinated Charlie Kirk. So if you confront them, chances are they're going to become extremely violent. Well, okay, chances is probably not the right. There's a distinct possibility that they can become physically violent. You have to be ready to answer in kind. All right, and I'm not advocating going out and looking for these people. They will let you know who they are. They are very proud of their ideology, and they will exclaim it as loud as possible to anybody that's within earshot. So I'm not advocating going out and hunting them, and I'm not advocating grabbing a gun and going out and hunting people like the left characterizes what we do. That's not what I'm advocating. We don't do that, and the facts prove that. The objective facts prove that. All right, but they will characterize us like that. And here's something else. Here's something else that you need to be ready for. When you do this, chances are you're going to get arrested, especially if there's violence, because law enforcement and the government is the only thing that has allowed this to propagate. They have kept people from being held accountable for their actions and their words. All right. When I grew up, if you talk like an idiot, you got your butt whooped. All right. You can't do that anymore. You cannot do that anymore. We have to be ready to do that. If somebody gets violent with us, we need to get more violent back with them.
Well, and I love what the community stands for, because I remember at the last gathering that I was at there, one of the kids had gotten out of hand over something, and the other men stepped in to reprimand and to chastise and to say, hey, you can't do this. And it was that town raising the kid.
Mm-hmm.
And
absolutely.
And so, those are the things I think that we start with that are immediately, because you're going to run into that scenario 100 times more than you're going to run into somebody getting stabbed on a bus. And so what are we prepared for? Be prepared for both. Be prepared for both. Be sharp in every way, but also be the Gandhi, if you will, that can fit into all four corners of whether you need to be peaceful, be a preacher, be a warrior, or be a soft lover, and be able to fit into all of those quadrants effectively. And I think that's the best version of you that you can be. And when you teach other men to be that same best version of themselves, we make a change. We make a change for ourselves. I'm going to live a more content life myself personally, even if I can't change the world. But I feel like the time that I've spent in my life trying to take that approach with men, because I've dealt with fixing broken men my entire career of being a plumber. I've had a bunch of misfits that showed up that their parents didn't do their job with them. And I feel like had I not been there with that approach in their lives, that they wouldn't be the men that they are today. And so because of the men that they are today, they're raising families and they're doing good things.
Yeah.
And that's the best that I can do.
Ideologically, they get in our faces. They get in people's faces all the time. And when they get in our faces, we need to push them back. We do it with dialogue, but we push them back at arm's length. And once we have that at arm's length, we push them outside our circle. And once we get them outside the circle, we push them further back ideologically. All right. And at some point, there's going to be a physical confrontation, just like what happened to Charlie Kirk. The reason why he was assassinated was because he was effective at counteracting their indoctrination. That's why he was ultimately assassinated, because that's the cardinal sin. You cannot take away the people that they indoctrinate. It is a violent cult that we are dealing with, and I appreciate everything that you're saying about love and being in all four quadrants. But the simple fact is, they will not let you be. They have a say in it, Mario. They have a say in it, and as soon as you accept that the paradigm on September 10th, 2025, the paradigm changed, and people need to come to grips with that. I don't like it. I do not like the fact that we're at this point, because the various routes this can go are very scary. I understand what civil war looks like. I have seen a war zone. I know what it looks like. All right. It's not something we want, because the outcome is not guaranteed. I'm going to use the word hate, and it's probably a little too hard, but I hate these guys on the right that are out there beating their chests saying, we need to go after them. We need to pick up our guns. It's time to start the Civil War. It's time to start this. No, it's not time. All right. I can't tell you exactly when that time is, but we do not want to get into a shooting war. All right. Because the outcome is not guaranteed.
You want your grandkids to do it instead, Grumpy?
No, I do not. No, I do not. All right. But I'm telling you right now that this is not the time for that, because the society as a whole.
I'm sorry. We gotta have some dialogue here. We can't have soliloquies, or this is just not working for
me. Okay, go ahead.
I mean, but interrupt me. I mean, let's have the conversations we have in person, because I know how we all talk to each other, and we're not, hurting each other's feelings.
Right.
So, look, this has gone on for way too long. Like I said earlier, we're in the times of weak men. We are the fourth turning, right? We're in the times of weak men. And I'm not advocating that we start a civil war. I'm not advocating for people to go and hurt somebody. But Mario, what you were saying earlier, go ask Budweiser and Disney how much it hurts when they promote their DEI garbage. And so everyone should go out and, fire a single shot. I'm not going to drink Budweiser anymore. I'm not going to solicit Disney anymore, or I'm not going to watch their crummy DEI shows. And that's helpful, right? Because it hurts them in their pocketbook. And I don't know, Grumpy, you talk about confronting people, and again, I just don't think I'm going to confront sociopaths anymore, but Mario, I do minister to men, that are seeking it, right? We'll talk a little bit about God or Jesus, and I plant the seed, and if the seed sprouts, sometimes they call me back. Don't get me wrong. You guys all know that I'm involved in local politics. I'm involved in local government. I volunteer as a board member on various political things and non-political things. I'm a classic liberal. I'm an environmentalist. I'm involved in that deeply. Yes, we need to do all the above, but I don't think this is going to change easy, guys. And I don't know what the answer is, but it's not going to just go silently in the night.
Agreed.
The middle, your people are going to hate me in your comment section. I've been kind of watching it here, but the middle management college idiots have been put in control, and they are the high priests of the new religion of government.
Okay. Matt, you said something that's absolutely correct. Okay, not everybody is gonna be out there doing the same thing. Some people just don't want to do it, can't do it. My point is that you need to be ready to do it if need be. All right, stop walking. Don't walk away. Don't let it slide. Right. If somebody's walking around with a T-shirt that's offensive, say something to them. All right. I'm a Gen Xer. You're a Gen Xer. We just want to be left alone. They're not going to leave us alone. It's become completely obvious that they are not going to leave us alone, and that we have to become involved, and we have to be ready.
What are you expecting to happen if you say something to somebody that's wearing an offensive T-shirt? I mean, you're inviting a confrontation now, and all my training teaches me to avoid those kind of confrontations.
And how well has it been avoiding these confrontations worked?
Well, I don't want to get in a situation where I might have to, I don't know what I can say on here. I don't want to have to defend myself with severity because I told some guy I didn't like his shirt.
Well, you're not at fault. You're not at fault there.
Your shirt. I think it can be, hey, let's have a conversation about your shirt. Tell me what it means. And at least you can introduce it that way instead of just telling somebody what your beliefs are don't align with mine, so therefore you're wrong.
Yeah, you got to be pretty careful about those conversations, though, right? I mean, pick a time and a place. Sure, I mean, if the situation creates itself and looks like it's not going to escalate, but there's certain people, you guys all know, come on, you know how to read people. There's some people like, maybe I'm not going to poke that bear.
Most people don't like just being told that they're wrong out of the blue.
Yeah.
I think, and I would add, the people who are on the line right now every day celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, I don't think you can negotiate with, and I'm not going to spend an ounce of my time on them. They're completely a lost cause in my book.
And if the business owner don't support their business.
So we only have open dialogue with people that are safe. We only try to change the minds of people that are safe to change their minds. Is that what you're saying?
No. I'm saying. And Grumpy, you know this. I have stood and had those open dialogues with people on the other side. What I'm talking about is if between your ears you're going to stand online and you're going to say that his murder was okay and acceptable, you are my enemy. End of story. I have nothing to say to you. And Norma, you're not important enough to me. You don't matter enough to me. That's what I'm saying. I'm not talking about reaching across the aisle to the middle of the blue and the middle of the red or whatever it is. I'm talking about if you're online celebrating this, you're my enemy. I have no middle ground in that.
I agree. But
what I really wanted to talk about, what I wanted to get to a little bit was too, before we run a little bit out of time, when do we as men and women, when do we start looking at a big picture? We've heard a lot of conversations about what we can do in our own homes. We've heard a lot of conversations about those kinds of things. And in my opinion, that mentality is what's gotten us right where we are. How do we begin to reach bigger? How do we think about our grandkids and their kids and their kids? Because lucky for us, our founding fathers didn't just think about their generation. And I'll be quiet and listen to you guys.
Well, you start in your own home. You start with your kids. I mean, Mario talked about it way early in here about, raising your kids a certain way. And Caleb, I know, I'm around your kids, you're teaching them these things and showing them these things. And then through community, we're spending time with other people with their children. My kids are in the public school, and so I try to interact, with the parents of some of the other children that my kids are friends with. Or, gosh, I mean, I hate to go down a rabbit hole here, but at one point when I lived out in California, okay, I'm going down the street from my house, and this kid throws this tree limb, not a giant tree limb, but he throws it out in front of my car, and I can see there's a handful of other little kids there, right? I hit the brakes. I get out of the car. The other little kid scram. The one kid apparently lived there. And I said, hey, I'm going to go in the house and I'm going to tell your dad what you did. Kid's face teared up and he looked at me. He says, I don't have a dad. And I stopped and I looked at him. I said, come with me. Let's go pull that tree limb out of the yard and, come over here and talk. Basically a total stranger. Started talking to him. Every time I saw the kid after that, he waved at me. Maybe I made a ripple in the water, but yeah, we need to make ripples in the water, right? And so in doing so, we can affect some change. Sure. I mean, but long term, all of the above, right? You got to be involved locally in your government. You got to be involved locally in the politics. You got to be involved in building a community and reaching out to the broader community. We talk about, your concentric circles. You got your center circle of your family and your immediate friends, and the next level, overlapping our communities. And I think that's what you do here a lot, Tag, right? I mean, you're in communication with lots of other communities, and we build that across the country. But I pray that we make some changes to the ballot box, but I want to hear you guys too. I'm sorry.
Hey, real quick, but before someone else answers, I want to address David here real quick because he says, I really don't see people saying murder is okay. You're not watching. All you got to do is get online, bud. There are people dancing. We got him in the neck. There's people doing all of those things. There are university professors right here in Kansas saying that he was better off being worm food. That is all over the place. If you're not seeing it, you're not watching. And I will stand on what I said. They are my enemy. And I will not apologize for it. Go ahead, Mario, before I rant.
So, no, that's okay. So, you asked the question, Tag, and my question to you is, do you have an idea? Do you have an idea that you want to share?
Yeah, this has been really hard for me. I've and anybody who watches this channel knows I stand on people are free to do whatever they want as long as they're not hurting somebody else. I don't care who you love. I don't care who you worship. It means nothing to me. Go live your life. I don't give a shit. It's really not that important to me. I'm going to live my life, kumbaya. But at the end of the day, something that's been so hard for me and that I've really become emotional about coming to this conclusion. You're not going to negotiate with someone who wants to kill you. You're not going to negotiate with the only answer to them is for you to not be here anymore. And at some point, we have to recognize that there is such a thing as good and evil. And then what do you do about that? You know what I'm going to do about it personally? I'm getting ready to go do a speech in Tennessee. And did you know I've completely thrown my speech away? I was sitting here writing it as Charlie Kirk was murdered. And I'm going to start that speech again. And I'm going to, get involved again. I'm going to continue to build community. I'm going to try to continue to build relationships. I'm going to continue to go to my county commissioner meetings, continue to do those things. And I've got my wife in my background saying it's time to build a school. And I'm going to go swing. I don't know what else to do, Mario. Just being honest, I don't know what else to do but to keep swinging as hard as I can swing and fight as hard as I can fight and hope that I got allies in the battle along the way.
Well, I think it comes down to how big of a problem is it to you and what are you willing to do to change it? And for all of us, it's a different answer because we're all in different stages of life. Matt and Caleb have children that are young, and Grumpy and I have children that are a little bit older. And different stages. I don't have the opportunity to go and sit into my classrooms anymore. Jen doesn't either, but we did while we had the opportunity. And I do know a lot. I've spent a little bit of time in my life being tuned into self-development courses and such, and being to try and level up in the skills that I have. And through doing so, I've gotten involved with a lot of guys that are into fatherhood movement. In fact, a nephew of mine has a podcast that he does that's, I don't know, he's 300-400 episodes in now of fathers that he brings on, and it's called Fatherhood Field Notes. And this guy is changing dads every day. It's his passion to want to teach men to be better fathers, because fatherhood is the most important job we will ever have. And so I would say, what do you do to sharpen your skills? People can pick up a book. People can turn on a podcast that's good, like Charlie Kirk or Jordan Peterson, that are teaching good values to their kids. If your young child wants to watch TV and you don't let them watch it, maybe find a good podcast where they can get influence over some things that maybe you're not articulate enough to be able to say to them in a way that they'll understand it, and maybe somebody else can do so. So we got to arm ourselves is what it boils down to if we're gonna move forward with any type of strength. And I'm not saying put on a gun or a knife or whatever. Yeah, defend yourself when necessary. Be able to stand up and protect the innocent when necessary as well, and be ready and trained for that. But there's another side to that we're going to be so much more effective, and that our tongue is our sharpest weapon. It is the one that will be the most effective. The words that we speak will be the words that we speak will either create wars or stop wars. It's not the gun that did it. It's the person or the words behind it that did it. And so if we're not trying to find that perfect balance in ourselves and create that leadership for the ones around us as well, raise your peers up, call your brothers up. I was in California and I got an invite to a men's Bible study. I'm like, man, I'm going to be there for like 4 months. Why not tap into something good? Man, it changed me, and it changed the guys around me, and some wonderful things happened for just stepping out into something that you wouldn't normally do. And that's a whole nother story, but I can just tell you it works if you just put the work in. What you put in is what you get out. Simple as that. And so we've got a lazy society. And what's the cycle? It's that weak men create bad times, and bad times create strong men, and strong men create good times. What are we? Where are we? I think we're in the bad times era right now, but that's an opportunity for us to become strong men, to make a change for good times again. Our children deserve it, and our grandchildren deserve it. If we don't put our foot forward to do it, it's not going to happen. And wishing it and wishing our government and all those things, that's great. We can do what we can with our vote, but what can you do, boots on the ground, to make a difference? And that's my pulpit that I'll stand on and defend as well, that I've been more effective with my words than I've ever been with violence.
Well, guys, it's an hour and 55 minutes, but I want to get some parting words for everybody, and we'll do it in the same order. Kind of that everybody came in with, and feel free, to speak your piece. And I'm not in a gigantic hurry, so whatever it takes is what it takes. But Grumpy, what are your final thoughts on all this? What are you going to share?
Tag, we cannot change the big picture until we change the little picture. And that's what we're doing in the community right now. So as far as that goes, we continue doing what we're doing, building community, becoming involved with the greater community, food independence, modern self-sufficiency. That's what we do. All right. And I want to part with this saying, Charlie Kirk was a militant. He was a nonviolent militant, but he was militant in his beliefs and in the way he presented them. If we do not become that type of militant, we're going to get steamrolled, just like we have for the past 50, 60 years. So militant does not mean that we automatically become violent, but we have to have the capability to do violence. And we don't shirk from people that are pushing against our ideology and our beliefs. And that's all I got to say about that.
Well, Grumpy, I want you to know that I appreciate you coming on. And there's a lot of words that you've said over the course of our relationship that stuck with me. And there's some of those that hang on the community wall. And so I just want to thank you for that.
All right.
Matt, go ahead.
Well, I believe that we, should strengthen ourselves with prayer. We should, strengthen ourselves with brotherhood. We should vote with our dollar. We should also show up and vote. We should get involved in our community. Get involved in, like Mario said, getting back to believing in something bigger than yourself. I remember decades or more ago, Glenn Beck said, I don't care if you believe in your toaster, you need to believe in something more than yourself. And, our kids are getting sucked up by social media and, sucked up by the indoctrination in the schools and the systems. So spend that extra time with your children, or your grandchildren, or the neighbor kids, or whatever children you can, and be a positive influence. Also be a person that they can reach out to and feel comfortable talking to if they need to. But lastly, listen, these cowards these far loony, crazy cowards don't commit violence where they know violence will be brought to them immediately. These guys aren't doing these school shootings where there's people armed. They're not, doing these shootings where they know they're going to have harm come back to them. And if they do, then be the harm that comes back to them. Be well trained. Be well healed.
Sharpshooter.
Well, like Grumpy said, I think we will become more effective when we realize that the big picture is made up of a lot of little pictures. And the more we change the little pictures, the more the big picture will ultimately change. And we do that starting at home, in the community, and you let that positive change be the virus that changes people, not the virus of hate. And with that, then you still, like we've all said, you still have to be prepared to you sharpen all your weapons. You train, like Matt said, and like Mario said, you train your mouth too. Your brain is your most effective weapon, period, is your mind. And we've got to help each other train and build each other up, because together we're more powerful of a weapon and the stronger we are. And so I guess with that, just be that positive change that you want to see, and try to strive to do that by surrounding yourself with the like-minded people that are strong and don't lose faith, don't lose hope. It's dark times and bad things happen a lot, and we have to be there to help lift each other up and to show each other the way not to get discouraged and not to just get in a rut of, well, this is just one more thing that's happened. This is just one more thing that's going to happen and we can't change it. Well, we can. We've seen that. We're doing it every day here locally. And the more that snowballs, maybe we can make a change on a bigger scale. And that's the hope that we got to hold on to.
Yeah. Very good, Sharpshooter. Mario, what you got?
You know, I'm in agreement with everybody. I think that you're all good men, and I think that everybody's hearts are that of a warrior, and I think that we all are reacting out of a different place in our hearts at different times, and I just one, I'm grateful for the opportunity to be around men that sharpen me. This is what it's about right here. This is it. This is the importance of community, is to iron sharpen iron, and it doesn't happen for just the men. And so I encourage the ladies, our better halves, to do what they can to support us in our roles as leaders and as men in our homes. It will make things even so much more effective when you come together as a larger force than just one. So be in agreement with each other. That means have something that you all subscribe to, that you are like-minded in. And if you're not, then take the time that it deserves to work those things out. It's of the utmost importance that you are of one accord, and you'll stand so much stronger that way. But with that being said, I would just like to lead us out in prayer. I think it's the one thing that is going to
hold on a second before we do that, Mario. Hey, sure. Ted, can you put HG's comment up on the screen so I can say this about not starting a cult? Okay, so I've been thinking about this all day long, and this conversation, and it kind of pushed me over the edge. I'm going to talk to my T-shirt guy, and I'm going to see if we can't come up with a design and a price point for a T-shirt that simply says "I am Charlie." All right, this is not creating a cult around him. What this is doing is it's letting the world know that we have the same ideas and the same values, and that we are willing to stand by them in public. So it's not creating a cult, right? Now they're going to say it is, but it's not. And personally, I think it's a fantastic way of doing it. It's just like the "I am Charlie Hebdo" shirts that they made whenever they killed the people at the French newspaper. The Islamists killed. It's the same idea. So I'm going to see if I can't get a good price point and a good design, and maybe make it happen. Right?
Are you going to get some talls for tall guys?
Well, it's going to be drop ship. It's going to be print on demand and drop ship if it happens. So you can order whatever you want, Matt.
Cool.
All right, Mario, go ahead, son.
Yeah. All right. Well, Father God, I just thank you for this opportunity to voice our opinions, to have the freedom of speech that we have right now, to be able to reach others just through the internet as well. And that we would all be able to have this iron sharpening iron effect. I pray that above all, Lord, that your name is glorified in all of this, and that we are armed with the things that we need, mostly the gospel, Lord, to be able to go out and to be effective in fighting the enemy. And we know that we do not battle against flesh and blood, but we battle against principalities in dark places and realms that we just will never understand. But I ask that you would just give us all the things that we need to be able to combat that, to stand against the enemy firmly, to protect our loved ones, protect the innocent ones around us, Lord. And I pray for a movement, not just in our country, but on this entire planet, that the people would start to stand up and take their role to protect and preserve life. If something were like that, so simple, we're done on that girl who was just murdered, Lord, one person would have stood up. It would have been a shot heard around the world for innocence. And so I pray that you just give us eyes to see and ears to hear, to protect our loved ones, our homes. Lord, and I just pray that you put a special blessing over Tag and B as they continue to do your good work and bringing us together and standing up against the things that you don't stand for. We pray all these things in Jesus' holy and precious name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. You know, I think for me, my parting word is you just never know what happens when we plant a seed. And, you know, as we began this video, Tom McDonald was singing about "I can no longer be quiet." And so I think what I would do is encourage everyone to no longer be quiet and to stand up even when your voice trembles, and still stand up and still stand up and still stand up. And maybe if we get enough of that going, you know, we can actually make some real. But I also think the days of tolerating that nonsense has got to come to an end for this country. We can't sit around and glorify fatherless homes. We can't sit around and, you know, glorify, you know, the non-nuclear family. We just can't sit around and glorify all of this anymore, in my opinion. And so I really hope that we can do these in just these little itty bitty steps, and that someday we can say this is what our life was for, and that it had some meaning beyond our own selfish self. And maybe there's a difference out there. I sure hope there is. And I can also, David Strom, I think, can take us out of here. So stay with the message of community. And I think that's true. I think with all of us together, we're a whole lot more powerful. And I want everybody in the audience to know something. Tonight's live was about you. It was about coming and having these conversations, but it was about healing for us too. And, you know, I purposely didn't send out a bunch of questions. I purposely didn't do those things because this has been hard on us. A lot of us have taken this really hard. And so I appreciate ZZ Top for coming into the show tonight. It's pretty cool. And we will see you guys on the next one. Ag, Sharpshooter, Matt, Mario, Grumpy out. Good night, everybody.
Good night.